Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 20. All right, people are joining in. So, in the meantime, as we always start, take a deep breath in and gently exhale and be completely present here. One more deep breath in and gently exhale. So, I'm again really glad for all of you who were able to make it. So, as you join in, I would like to do a quick recap, like over the past few days. Yes, hi, Mr. Singh. Hi, Daniel. Right? So, let's do a quick recap. So, we have been speaking about emotional exhaustion, nervous system survival patterns, identity confusion, emotional numbness, misalignment, and the cost of living disconnected from ourselves. And today's conversation may feel deeply, deeply personal for many people here. And you would have seen that we are getting every day one layer deeper to all of the experiences, isn't it? So, because sometimes the real exhaustion is not coming only from work, responsibilities, or life situations, right? Do you agree to that? So it comes from repeating emotional experiences that quietly drain us again and again. And hence today's topic. And with this, one of the most difficult things to recognize is this: human beings often return to emotional pain that feels familiar, even when it is no longer feels healthy. Have you ever experienced that? We get again and again stuck into certain situations, even though if it is not healthy emotionally. Yeah, correct. And these all experiences doesn't happen consciously, not intentionally either, because the nervous system tends to trust what it already knows. So today we are going to explore why that happens, not through any kind of a blame or through self criticizing ourselves, yet through understanding how emotional conditioning, survival responses, and brain's wiring shape our patterns. So, with this, I would like to ask you something very important. I want you to be honest with yourself, even if no one else can see your answer. So, you don't have to write it down in the chat, just be very honest when you answer this. Think about that one habit, or say one relationship, or one situation in your life right now that you know is hurting you again and again, again and again. You can feel it. You can feel it every minute. You have probably known for months or maybe for years that it isn't good for you. You don't deserve this kind of behavior. You don't need to hear these kind of words. You don't need to face these always criticizing mode. You have not done this, you have not done that. These are certain scenarios that I'm talking about. And yet, you are still there. You are still doing it. You are still choosing it every single day. Has that happened to you? Maybe write, give a heart in the chat if something is something you are dealing with. You don't have to be sharing the actual thing in the chat, maybe just a heart to support yourself. Now the question comes, why? Why, as we know this, still we don't want to get rid or we can't get rid of it? That is the answer we are going to get today. Not in a surface level, not in just believe in yourself way. We are going to go deep into your brain, into your nervous system, into a part of you that learned to survive in a world that you may not have always been safe or kind. You get stuck into the places where people be very mean to you, or maybe situation gets um, too hurting. Still, you get stuck in there. Because here's the truth that nobody talks about enough. Again, you are not broken. You are not weak. It's not something you are dependent on someone. You are not self destructive. You are someone whose nervous system learned a very specific lesson a long time ago. And today we are going to understand that lesson. You can finally start to rewire it. So, once again, welcome everyone. As and I see you all joining here from all over. If comfortable, you drop your name and wherever you are watching from in the comments. Tonight is day 20 of our 30-day journey. And this might just be the most important session we have had so far. Are you ready? Yes? Okay. And again, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, I'm Ishita Bagchi. I'm a life coach specializing in emotional intelligence, a counseling psychologist, a DMIT counselor, and I also work with healing practices like pranic healing, Reiki, and crystal healing. Mhm. And what my work really focuses on is helping people understand the emotional patterns running beneath their every decisions, relationships, reactions, or say life choices. Because many people today are not lacking intelligence, they are not lacking capability. They are emotionally repeating what their nervous system learned was familiar. And unless those patterns become conscious, people often continue recreating the same emotional suffering in different forms with different people. And today, we are going to understand how that happens. So, okay. So, let me start with sharing one of my counseling session experience. So, I'm not going to name here anyone. However, I want to tell you about someone I worked with. I will call her A, not her real name, yet her real story. And I'm sharing with her permission. So, once she came to me about maybe 3 to 5 years ago. She was educated, she can articulate well, deeply empathetic. From the outside, she had it together. a stable job, a social life, a beautiful apartment. And inside, she was exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. She had been in a relationship for 6 years and with a person, probably, yeah, 6 years. And with a man who, by her own words, made her feel small. He wasn't physically abusive, yet he was cold, dismissive. He would go silent for days when she tried to address something emotional, something she wanted to share from her heart, something she felt that I really want to discuss this critical thing with someone. However, he made her feel like her emotions were too much. And yet, every time they, you know, they had a conflict, still she would go back within days, sometimes within hours. And I still remember when she sat across me in our first session, I asked her, what does it feel like when he ignores you? She paused and then she said something that I have never forgotten. She said, it feels like home. It feels like that's how it is. Think about that. She was not saying it was pleasant, she was saying it was familiar. And as we worked together, we discovered that she had grown up with the family member who was emotionally unavailable, and that was her own father, who was physically present yet emotionally absent, who never validated her feelings. And as a little girl, her entire emotional world had been organized around one central mission, that is, earn the love of someone who doesn't give it freely. That's why it's often says how both the parent plays an important role in a kid's life. It's not only mom or it's not only dad. She had spent many years believing that love was supposed to feel like chasing, that peace was suspicious, the tenderness got boring, that if someone treated her well, she felt that, okay, something must be wrong with them or with her for accepting it. Could you see the depth of it? Could you just understand how terrible it could have got? And the day she cried the hardest in our session was not when we talked about the bad things he had done, because she got used to with it. Yes, it felt very familiar. It felt it is how it is. And it was the day she cried hard when she realized she has chosen him because it felt like the love she had always known. He he was the person, he was the same old familiar experiences she had as a child from her own father, where being emotional unavailable is okay, and that's how love is. And she had confused familiar with this safety. She had confused comfortable with right. And that is the story I wanted us to hold today. Because as we go deeper into the science of why this happens, what we can do rather to finally change it. Now let us understand the science behind this. Neuroscience shows that the brain is designed to prioritize familiarity and predictability. Research in neuroplasticity demonstrates that repeated emotional experiences create that stronger neural pathways. The more an emotional pattern repeats, the more automatic it becomes. Now, supposingly, so if someone repeatedly experiences that inconsistency, emotional unpredictability, conditional approval, or emotional neglect, the brain slowly normalizes those emotional environments. And this is why many people unconsciously recreate that emotional draining situations. Yes, we are responsible to create unconsciously those that emotional draining situations, not because nobody enjoys suffering. That is a suffering if somebody is very cold, if somebody is not emotionally available. Rest all is fine, anything else is replaceable, but the person who is there needs to have that emotional connect. That's why we say that some people tend to recreate those emotional draining situations. And the worst part is the nervous system mistakes that familiarity for that safety. So, Dr. Bruce Perry's works on trauma and the nervous system explains that repeated emotional experiences shape how the brain learns to respond to relationships and stress. I recently attended one of the healing sessions on trauma as well. And there has been a great learning because we always used to think that trauma is something like some big event. However, there are many other trauma that we don't even understand, but I don't want to complicate this with here. However, just to touch upon that, yes, those repeated emotional experiences, you would have understood why this work on trauma have this, that repeated emotional experiences shape how the brain learns to respond to relationships and stress. And that attachment probably, uh, you know, is misleaded here, like misunderstood by the person because they have understood that okay, this is what is love and attachment is. And there is one more attachment research theory by John Bowley also showed that early emotional experiences create internal relationship templates. What does that mean? That means if in your early stage, whether it is your childhood, your college days, or your say any phase in the early stage which is uh, you know evidently very much there in your mind somewhere, that eventually create your internal relationship template. Meaning the way love felt emotionally familiar earlier in life often becomes what we consciously seek later. Now if you have, like we shared the example that as that lady experienced in her early stage that emotional unavailability from her father, that made her, or got used to with the same emotional unfamiliar, probably unavailability from her husband as well. And that's why that made a repetitive, see, probably experiences again and again, getting recreated again and again in her life. Now let us understand in this, in bit parts. Now, part one, that is familiar suffering. So, why her brain, that is the experience or the example that I showed, why her brain do this? Why does her brain behave or respond the way it is? It isn't a character flaw. This becomes like a wiring. There is one more neuroscientist, Dr. Joseph Leduc's work on the amygdala shows that emotional memories formed in the early childhood are stored in the part of the brain that operates below conscious awareness. Now, what does that mean? It means we react to the emotional threats before we even know we are reacting. So, your brain has a structure called amygdala. It's your emotional alarm system. Its entire job is to scan your environment for patterns that matches your past experience. Got it? So what it is doing is, say whatever is happening around, it's scanning and trying to collect the data from the past. And when it detects a match, right match detected, it immediately triggers a response. And here's the important part, it doesn't stop to ask whether that pattern was good or bad. It only says familiar detection, and that signals safety to the brain. Even when the familiar thing is painful, even when the familiar thing is the relationship that makes you cry every night, even when the familiar thing is the job that slowly, making you empty from you inside, your amygdala says, I know this, I can predict this, and this is safe. That is a scary point. Part two, that is emotional conditioning. The second piece of the puzzle is something called emotional conditioning. This comes from the work of Ivan Pavlov. Yes, the man with the dogs. This theory I loved it because okay, let's go with this. Because it goes far beyond the salivation. What Pavlov showed us is the brain learns to associate that stimuli with the emotional responses. And once that association is formed, it becomes almost automatic. So for her, silence from a loved one had been conditioned since childhood to mean if I try harder, love me more, prove myself more, eventually I'll be enough. The silence didn't make her want to leave, it made her want to fight harder to be loved. Again, the beautiful theory from Bessel van der Kolk. He has written the book called The Body Keeps the Score. I would suggest please go through that. Amazing book. He found that the emotional conditioning from the early relational trauma doesn't just affect thoughts, it embeds into the nervous system as somatic memory. People don't just think themselves back into the painful patterns, they feel their way there through those body sensations, long before a conscious thought is formed. This is why telling yourself, I know this is bad for me, is not enough. We often see that, we hear people say, we try to give somebody a suggestion. Boss, this is not good for you. You will get into the trouble again. Does this line not let them take that step? I have seen multiple such cases where, probably in college days, as a friend, whenever we give certain advice that this won't work, please stray away with that. However, nobody listened, because that line is not enough. Because by the time your conscious mind has formed that thought, your nervous system has already activated the familiar pattern. So, logic is not the antidote to emotional conditioning. I really love this. Logic is not at all the antidote to emotional conditioning. A new experience is, and that needs to be consciously put it in. Now, the part number three, that is the dopamine trap. So I called it one more piece. That is, one is this is one of the sneaky intermittent reinforcement. So, research by another neuroscientist, Wolfram at Cambridge, shows that the dopamine system, your brain reward circuit, fires more powerfully not when the reward is guaranteed, yet when it is unpredictable. This is why slot machines are more addictive than vending machines. A vending machine gives you chips every time. A slot machine gives you chips sometimes randomly, unexpectedly, and your dopamine system goes absolutely haywire. Now, think about the relationship or the situation that drains you. Let us come back to a very common example, the pattern. Is the pain constant? There's a big question. Is the pain constant? Or is there a good day followed by three bad days? Repeat it. Is the pain constant, or is there a good day followed by three bad days? Is there a occasional warmth mixed with long stretches of coldness? That intermittency, that unpredictable reward, is keeping your brain hooked at a neurological level. So, one more research, that is a study from the University of Michigan, found that people in emotionally inconsistent relationships showed similar dopamine seeking patterns to individuals with gambling disorders, constantly seeking the next win in an unpredictable emotional environment. So, I want you to hear this clearly. If you have been stuck in a painful pattern, your brain is also not broken. You don't have some mental issues. That's the biggest challenge. That's the reason I take it as a mission, that I want to bring the awareness of this, that whenever certain thing is related to depression or some, you know, breakdown or some overworked emotional exhaustion, everything is connected to, oh my god, this person has a mental issue. And I really get pain when I hear people from a knowledgeable environment, they say that, okay, this is what it is. And see, it's not to criticize again. I feel that we as a human, we should take that responsibility that if we don't have certain awareness, we learn more about it. Like the unwanted scrolls we do, let us just take that word and see what exactly it is, to avoid that misconception about what are we talking about, what is this issue of all about, what is this mental health all about, which is very important. So, like I said, the brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was trained to do. It learned early what love or success or safety feels like, and it is relentlessly seeking that feeling. It is just following the, things that were taught, that was stored in it, even when that feeling hurts you, even when you consciously want something different, even if you want to get out of that situation. You don't want to take that, unwanted behavior every time. That sudden coldness, sudden, quiet treatment, that I don't feel your emotion worth discussing, kind of. Now, the question is, how do we interrupt this? We often talk about the challenges. This is what it is, that is what it is. How do we actually do that at the level of the nervous system so that it start to choose differently? That's what we are going to practice today. So I will call it like pattern interruption practice. Probably this would be required to be done every day to see a visible difference. And I want to guide you through this practice today, right now. And I always keep on saying none of the practices which is taught in all of these days, it's not a one-time fix. This is something you have to see what situation, what condition you are facing, and with that you have to do the practice regularly. And if this is something you're facing, the recurring pattern, the recurring, you know challenge, let's do this every day, 5 minutes maybe in the morning, to begin rewiring your nervous system towards a different future. Just try doing it for 21 days. You will see a, visible difference. Now let's do one thing. Find a comfortable position. See you are not disturbed, and make sure you are fully present. Don't do it along with something else. I always tell people there is nothing called multitasking. Whenever you try to do multiple things together, one or the other thing will be compromised. So it's always better you do fully, even for 5 minutes. If you're doing, do it completely with your whole and soul here. Now sit comfortably, take a, place where you can keep your back straight. And if you're comfortable, gently close your eyes. Now there are a few steps to follow. Step 1. Think of one pattern in your life that keeps repeating. It can be a habit, a relationship dynamic, a way you respond when you feel triggered. Don't judge it. Just name it in your mind and say it yourself. I keep choosing whatever that comes in your mind, whatever pattern you selected. You just say yourself, I keep choosing. Now, Don't rush through it. Go to step 2. Notice where you feel this pattern in your body, not in your mind, in your body. Is there a tightness in the chest, a contraction in your throat, a heaviness in your stomach? Place your hand there and just notice. You don't need to fix it right now. Just feel it. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Now, step 3. Ask yourself, and be gentle here. When did I first feel this feeling? How old was I when I encountered it? What was happening around? Again, don't force a memory. Just invite it, let it come. Now, whatever comes up, a flash of a face, a feeling of smallness, a sense of not being enough, let it surface and whisper to that part of you, I see you. You were trying to survive, and you did. You made it through. Now, step 4. Choose a new signal. Now take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to choose differently. Not forever, not perfectly, just today. Just one moment today. Imagine what peace feels like in your body. Not excitement, not the pull of the familiar, just quiet, safe, steady. Let your nervous system feel that even for 10 seconds, because every time you give your nervous system a taste of what you actually want, you are teaching it that safety is real, that calm is available, that you are allowed to be held gently. Take one final breath. Place both of your hands on your heart and say out loud. Or you can also do it in your mind. I'm learning to choose what I deserve, not just what I know. With this, Gently open your eyes when you're ready. As I said, try to do it for 21 days or even for the next 10 days. Do it in your bed before you check your phone, just 5 minutes. The consistency is what rewires the pattern, not the intensity of any single session. With this, we have covered a lot today. You now understand why familiar suffering feels safer than unfamiliar peace. And that is not a small thing to understand. Most people live their entire lives without ever asking that question. Like that woman I told you about earlier. She did this work, she did the daily practice. She sat with the discomfort of choosing differently. And 14 months into our work together, we ended that relationship, not in a moment of anger, not dramatically. She simply quietly chose herself. She told, I'm not afraid of the silence anymore. I don't need to earn love. I just want to receive it. And that is what's available to you. And if today's session stirred something in you, if you felt recognized or seen, or if something cracked open just a little, then I want you to invite you to the next step. I work with people in a deeply personalized one on one coaching. We don't just talk about patterns, we find where they live in the nervous system, their beliefs, their relationships, and we do the actual work of rewiring them using emotional intelligence, frameworks, somatic practices, and for those open to it, energy healing tools as well. And if you feel like to book the session, you will find there is a link given in the description. No pressure, just a conversation to see if this works right for you. And I am right person to walk that journey with you. And if you're ready for that, if you want to go ahead, we can carry on. And if you're not, you can continue going through the sessions which are still left. We have 10 more sessions together, and I promise you, we are only going deeper. So I want you to drop a heart in the comments if today moved you, and share this session with someone you know who might need to hear this. And with this, I will see you tomorrow, same, with the new topic. Remember, you are not patterns. You are awareness that can finally see them. And that awareness, that is where freedom lives. So, thank you so much for being here. See you tomorrow.